of the heart flows the issues of life. And many of these issues stem from one's emotional, mental, and spiritual condition. Such issues may oppress, stifle, and even stagnate one from living a healthy and fulfilling life. So how does one progress past such issues and achieve a state of emotional, mental, and spiritual healing? There's help, so open your heart and prepare your mind. It's time for healing to take place in your life. You're in tuned to Talking with Dr. Toy, a holistic approach to emotional healing. And now, your host, licensed professional counselor, Dr. Toy Lisa Mitchell.
It's just me and you. I feel so lost, 'cause I don't know what to do.
Well, good Sunday morning. Thank you so much for tuning in to Talking with Dr. Toy. It comes your way every Sunday. Listen, I want to say thank you so much for tuning in to the broadcast. I am so grateful for your presence. And listen, just taking time out of your schedule to tune in, I do not take that for granted. And so my hope is that something will be said that will definitely, that you can use, that will be helpful and healthy for you as you progress on your journey to holistic healing. Listen, that brings me to my purpose. My purpose is to provide a holistic approach to emotional healing. Therefore, my mission to provide a holistic, restorative, therapeutic approach in addressing and resolving issues that adversely affect the emotional, psychological, spiritual, and physical well-being of individuals who desire to enhance their quality of life. You know what I always want to do? Do a self-care check. Yeah. Listen, how are you? And I really want you to pause. How are you? Remember, we talked about just doing that internal mental health check. Checking in with yourself. How am I really doing? Right? What am I experiencing? How am I really doing? What am I experiencing? How am I experiencing it? Like, what is, what's happening? How am I acting and behaving? How am I experiencing it? Even in really looking and connecting with aspects of your body, how am I experiencing it? Even in my body, not only in my interactions with others, but even in my body, how am I experiencing it? And then finally, what do you need? What do you need? So just doing that brief mental health check-in, I think could definitely be beneficial for you. And so how are you? Pausing and really assessing how you're doing. And also that follow-up, what did you do for self-care this week? Again, making sure that we are taking an active role. I love that this simple definition of self-care, the practice of taking an active role in protecting one's own well-being and happiness. So what did you do for self-care this week? And then, this concept of community care. Love this, the power of collective caring. People committed to leveraging their privilege to be there for one another in various ways. And how I frame that is simply this. How did you show up for others, and how did you allow others to show up for you? There is this, I'm telling you, sometimes it's difficult in many cases, especially for those who've experienced trauma, to be connected in community, because there's, these protectors wanting to protect ourselves, scared of being hurt, scared of being wounded. So we insulate and isolate. And one of the ways in which healing takes place, honestly, one of the ways in which healing takes place is in community. Having people to show up for you, allowing people to show up for you, and you showing up for other people. Community care is key, and having that balance of community care and self-care is essential to navigating a journey of restoration and healing. Well, listen, I know that we are now in the holiday season, right? As we see all the decorations and all of this. And so I started maybe about two podcasts ago where I was talking about just really preparing your mental health toolkit to help you navigate the holiday season. Kind of deviated with some other things, but I want to get back to that since we are definitely nearing the Thanksgiving holiday and of course Christmas. One of the things that I have said and I want to reiterate is continue to consider your context as we navigate this holiday season. It's important to consider your context because we're in tumultuous times. There's a lot of fear that people are experiencing, uncertainty, and all of that. And even as a child of God, even though we have faith, we are not immune to experiencing these things that are happening in our world. And yes, we, have a source that we can go to who is our rock, our refuge, but it doesn't immune us from experiencing the tumultuous times that we're in. We know that, even in the Word of God, Jesus said that in this world we would have trouble. And even as we look at the life of Jesus and we look at the lives of the disciples, we see that they were not immune to experiencing the times that they were in, not immune to experiencing various emotions, big emotions, difficult emotions, right? And troubling situations and circumstances. And so we're not immune to that as well. And so one of the things that will help, I do believe, as we talk about really getting together your mental health toolkit to navigate the holidays, one of the things that I think is very helpful for us to really process is, okay, what do I need in my mental health toolkit? And one of the things that is helpful is to consider context. Yes, we know in many cases, and why am I saying that? Because I think in some ways, when we think about how we've navigated maybe the holiday season in the past, we have this notion of tradition and ritual and all of that, and that's great. However, I do encourage you to maybe be a bit more flexible, right, and fluid in this season because of how many people are really suffering in ways that some of their basic needs may not be met. And maybe instead of really thinking about, okay, what type of gift am I going to give loved ones and all of this, maybe you're processing, how am I going to have food on the table this season? Right? And part of that process can be, if we're considering context, to really maybe adjust to say, I may not be able to do all that I was able to do last year or 2 years ago, because I am considering here's what's happening today. And I think when we are able to consider context of what we may be experiencing, I think it will give us, and if I have to say it like this, but give us permission to say, I need to do something different this year. And just because I'm doing something different doesn't mean that that's a negative thing. It just means I'm pivoting, right? When we talk about the pivot, I'm making adjustments, because being rigid and trying to adhere to something that we've done in the past but may not be relevant or feasible in the present, we can get ourselves stuck. And we can also be overwhelmed because we're trying to do something that may be exceeding our resources. And so one of the main points that I would encourage you to really process and think about as we navigate this holiday season is, one, consider context. How are things different and how are things similar from last year? And when I talk about context, I'm not only talking about just the financial piece of it, but also too the stress of it all, right? The inundation of information and how in some ways the uncertainty, and even just seeing some ways in which there's seems to be a rampant aspect of just negativity, right? That does impact us. And part of this process is that even if you're one that you're like, you know what, I'm unscathed, I'm doing okay, but you may have people in your life, people around you, people in your life who are experiencing these things. So in some ways may not directly impact you, but you are maybe more indirectly impacted by it because you're seeing people that you care about, people that you love, who may be struggling and experiencing adverse effects of what is happening. So I think that definitely is something that I am wanting you to really consider. How are things different? And how are things the same? And then maybe ask yourself this question. Do I need to pivot? Right? Do I need to modify? Because it comes to, and like I said, I always kind of go back to this phrase that was very helpful, and it's become a mantra for me. And I didn't say it, but I have definitely clung to it. Is this mantra of my peace is non-negotiable. My peace is non-negotiable. So remember, we talked about before, the practice as far as self-care, the practice of taking an active role in protecting one's own well-being, right? And so it is very important to really assess context and what's different about this year than last year. How am I different? How have things changed? And in some ways, and let's be honest, who's not here this year? Right? We know that during the holiday season, there are these moments when grief and loss may be all too familiar, and you begin to think about, right? Because it's the gathering, when you think about the gathering of the families and all of that and friends, and you begin to think about who's not here, who was here last year. That's considering context as well, and how that may impact you. And it's okay to be in a space where you are acknowledging that I don't feel the same way I felt last year. I feel maybe I'm missing them. I feel sad. And I'm saying that to say that be kind and compassionate with yourself, because context has changed, which may warrant pivoting, thinking about, do I need to do some things differently? Do I need a bit more support? Because maybe the person who is no longer physically present here was a huge support for me, right? And although no one can replace that person, it may be helpful for you to begin to think about who to lean into for this season. So again, coming back to that aspect of really preparing, really working on Our mental health toolkit for this season. Number 1, context. Consider context. Number 2, I think it's very important to really think about safety. And when I say safety, I mean, of course, physical safety, but I'm also thinking about emotional safety too, right? When we think about safety, are there places and spaces where you don't feel emotionally safe? And when I say emotionally safe, I mean just you may get triggered because maybe this is an environment that in some ways can be toxic and all of that, and you just feel you don't feel at ease being in those spaces. But for the holiday season, it's like there are expectations that you show up and that you be present in these spaces. And so part of this process for you may be, really connecting with, do I feel safe in this space? And even though you may feel a sense of like a lack of safety, emotional safety, what that means is that if you are in ways saying, I have to show up because it's expected of me, one of the things that I would encourage is to think about boundaries, right? Because if you're saying that I have to show up in these spaces and so how do I do that and still take care of myself? Because maybe you don't have an option of not going, right? So, but for some of you who may have that option, you may want to consider that. Do I really want to be in that space? Do I have to be in that space? Do I have an option of not being in that space? Right? Again, just the question. But if you're in a situation that you're like, even though I don't feel safe, how can I take care of myself? One, again, let's think about boundaries. That if you're going to a place and you know that there's no emotional safety or you lack emotional safety, then one of the things I would love you to think about is this: where do you feel safe? If you have to go to someone's house, is there an option for you to maybe excuse yourself and go outside to collect yourself, right? To engage in some activities that, I've talked about before to just regulate anxiety, whether it be some grounding strategies, whether it be some coping mechanisms. Basically, here's what I'm saying. We need to have a plan, right? We need to have a plan. And so the time to plan is not when you're there. The time to plan is now. So if I know that I'm going into an environment, assessing safety where maybe I don't feel safe, then I need to come up with a plan of ways to, right, protect my own well-being, right? And to really make sure that I am taking care of myself holistically. So what's that plan? An example of such a plan can be, do you have someone, that's going to be at this gathering who's a safe person for you? So although the environment may not be safe and you may not feel safe with everyone else, is there someone that you can connect with where you do feel safe, right? So maybe it's that person that you're like, I'm pretty okay with this person. I feel pretty settled. Then that may be your person. And that's okay, right? And so you create a plan where, in many cases, I want to make sure that I connect with this person because I really feel grounded and safe when I'm with that person. That may be part of your plan. Another aspect of your plan may be, if this is not a space where I feel safe, how do I manage my time, right? So maybe what that means is this, is that I think about, hey, maybe I'll spend an hour here, right? Because in some ways there may be an expectation of, well, you just stay here all day. I'm just exaggerating, but maybe you're saying, I'm going to show up because I feel I think I have to go. So I'm going to show up. But maybe what you can do is that you can put some boundaries around your time. That, this year I'm going to only stay for an hour. Right? Maybe last year I was in a different space and I was able to stay for most of the day, but maybe this year I'm going to only stay for an hour because I don't feel emotionally safe here. And part of this process is maybe what I need is to say, let me limit my time. Now, here's what I do want you to think about too. I also want you to think about if you are experiencing some depression, right? Even anxiety, if you're experiencing some anxiety and depression, and sometimes with depression, we want to isolate, right? We want to isolate and insulate ourselves, stay away from, disconnect from people and all of this. And let me say this, there's a difference between having solitude and really isolating. So we want to make sure that we discern that, are you implementing self-care, taking care of yourself, or are you maybe experiencing some depression where you're isolating yourself from others, right? And so we want to make sure that you are taking care of yourself in ways that are going to be helpful and healthy for you. Totally isolating is not healthy. Yes, time alone, solitude is needed. But again, there's a difference between isolation and solitude. I think solitude is cultivating, nurturing yourself. And I believe isolation is you're protecting, right, yourself from people because in ways you're like, I don't have the energy. I don't want to be around people. And so part of this process may be is that really looking at what am I experiencing? Because if I'm experiencing some depressive symptoms, it may be helpful for me to be around people. And when I say be around people, I mean people that are safe, right? Safe. Because many cases, there are people that can help you, right? Remember that concept of community care, allowing others to show up for you. And when you're isolated, you're not allowing people to show up for you. And sometimes we need that because it helps us it brings restoration. And it helps to be connected in a way where there are people that are showing up for us that can improve our mood, that can improve. So we want to make sure that we discern those differences. Am I isolating? Or am I practicing solitude? Right? And only you can answer that question. But the goal is this. Really assessing safety and really implementing things that will help you be safe. Whether it be limiting my time there, whether it be connecting with people who are healthy and safe for me. And notice again, I always feel like I always think that I need to say this. We're not talking about people being perfect, right? We're not talking about perfection. Humanity is not perfect. But your system can feel safety even when it's imperfect, even when the person may be imperfect, but you feel like, hey, I can show up and I perceive that this person will not intentionally harm me or hurt me, right? And so when we talk about that aspect of safety, we talk about a plan, having a plan. And I'm encouraging you to really think through that. So number one, considering context, right? And being open to the pivot and being open to modifying some things and exhibiting, well, that'll be my third point. Secondly, safety, right? Assessing safety and what is needed for you in order for you to be safe, right? And that is making a plan. Making a plan doesn't have to be a huge plan, but just here's the things that it's almost like when we go to work and we think about, okay, I want to make sure that I plan my day, so I make sure I get my goals and all this. This is what this is. We're just planning, all right? Enacting a plan of safety. What does that look like? Okay. And then three, and I think this is very important. Very important. And number three is this: extend compassion and kindness to yourself as well as others. Let me say that again. Extend compassion and kindness to yourself as well as others. Why do I say this? This is the reason why I say this. The holidays may mean different things to other people. And other people may experience this holiday season in different ways. You never know if someone may be grieving a loved one. You never know if someone may be lonely. These are things that you don't know how people may be navigating the holiday season. And so sometimes what happens is this: because the holiday season can be maybe one of the most stressful or depressing times, a person may be responding out of that space where you get to the place and you say, well, you don't seem like yourself. And I think sometimes what we do is that we judge it, right? We judge it without understanding of what may be happening or what this person may be going through. So we may make snap judgments instead of truly understanding that this person may be the reason why this person is irritable, right? Or the reason why this person is agitated is because they're grieving. Their mom, who was here last year, is not here this year. That loved one is no longer physically here. And they don't know, maybe have the skills to navigate through grief in a way where they, in many cases, may just lash out. And so we may judge them. And I love this saying when we talk about, don't ask what's wrong with the person. Ask what happened to them. And I think that will allow us to maybe have more empathy and compassion, because we don't know how people are navigating this season and what they're going through. And the same with you. Being mindful to be compassionate and kind to yourself, because again, as we consider context, this year is not like last year. And maybe you're struggling a little bit more. And so you may have expectations of yourself that may be a bit unrealistic. Well, I'm the one that has to show up strong and be this and be that, when you're hanging on by the hair of your chin and won't ask for help, won't lean into support. So you may be disappointed and maybe frustrated in yourself that, I can't be that this year. I'm struggling to be that this year. Again, allowing yourself compassion, showing yourself compassion and kindness to say, yeah, I'm going to show up a bit differently this year. Maybe this year I'm going to lean in more. Maybe I was the rock last year, but maybe I need someone, to lean in this year. So I want to lean in this year. These are things that I think are helpful for you to think about and consider as we navigate the holiday season. Again, number one, consider our context. What's different? What's the same? How am I different? Right? Consider context. Number two, assess for safety. What are the places, where I feel safe, and what are the places where I feel unsafe? And acknowledging those, and also, again, creating a plan. How do I take an active role, right, in protecting my own well-being? What does that look like? And then third, really showing and practicing compassion, grace, and kindness to ourselves and to others. Those are some things that I think would serve the basis of our mental health toolkit. All right. I think those things are helpful. And hopefully next time I'll come back with some other tools to put in our toolkit. But maybe let's start there and see how that may be helpful for us. Well, listen, that's all the time that I have for today. I want to, again, thank you so much for tuning in. And remember, relentlessly and intentionally pursue authentic and genuine relationships vertically with God, horizontally with others, and inwardly with yourself. 2, maintain and sustain a keen sense of awareness and ongoing discovery about self as well as others. 3, take good care of you and engage in things that are helpful for your mind, body, soul, and spirit. And remember, out of the heart flows the issues of life. Let's continue to talk about it and continue our journey towards emotional healing. Until next time, bye-bye.
You've been in tuned to Talking with Dr. Toy, providing a holistic approach to emotional healing with your host, licensed professional counselor, Dr. Toy Lisa Mitchell. Please connect with me at talkingwithdrtoy.com or Facebook at Talking with Dr. Toy or email talkingwithdrtoy@gmail.com. I would love to hear your story and hear your heart regarding the issues of life you may be experiencing. Remember, out of the heart flows the issues of life. Let's continue to talk about it. I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks for listening, and please join me next week for Talking with Dr. Toy.